بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وإنك لعلى خلق عظيم قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أكمل المؤمنين إيمانا أحسنهم خلقا وخياركم لنساء لأهله أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام صدق الله العظيم وصدق رسوله النبي الكريم ونحن على ذلك من الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين أما بعد. Honorable brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Part of the muhimmat and the responsibilities of nubuwah with which Allah Ta'ala sent Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, as we mentioned in the ayat over the last few weeks, هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياته وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ. And this theme has been repeated wherever Allah Ta'ala talks of the responsibilities of nubuwah, and similarly for the previous Anbiya as well. So the responsibility of nubuwah is the reformation of the hearts, reformation of the souls of the followers of the Nabi. Tazkiyah, which is known as. One is recitation of the Quran, education, وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةِ, educating them and sharing the knowledge of the Quran, its words, its meaning, its interpretation and application. But at the same time with the academia, which is absolutely important, more important than that is the reformation of the souls. If you look at the formation of the verse also, it's amazing. هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة. Recite the Quran, reform the souls and educate them. With education, knowledge can breed a sense of pride and arrogance in the heart. So before that, we need to reform and purify the souls. This was one of the muhimmat and one of the responsibilities of nubuwah. But in order for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to pass on and fulfill his responsibility and duty to the ummah, he sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and as was the case with all of the Anbiya, is to be reformed personally first. So they only received nubuwah at the age of 40. And the years preceding, Allah Ta'ala used those years for the reformation of the Nabi, purification of the soul of the Nabi. Meaning, destroying the inner soul, the lust, the carnal self, being able to have full control of your emotions and desires, and the ability to work with others. So every Nabi that came, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and every Nabi prior to Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, as part of the system of Allah, they would rear sheep. They would tend to sheep, so you can say they were shepherds. And the reason for this is, in being a shepherd or rearing sheep, this is not first of all, maybe not the most glamorous of jobs, and not the most easiest one at that as well. Because when you're dealing with your animals and your sheep, then they sometimes have a mind of their own. And if one decides to take a turn, the whole herd goes with. So the Nabi has to develop the quality of sabr and patience and tolerance, forbearance, and how to deal with each one individually. And then the mentality that one will go and all will follow suit as well, and to bring them back onto the path. Because this Nabi is going to grow older and is going to become the Nabi of Allah, and he will have to then tend to the Ummah. He will have to then look after the Ummah. The point here is not to make mention on what the Anbiya had to do. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that Allah ta'ala has purified and beautified my character. And then Allah ta'ala says in the Quran regarding Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, وَإِنَّكَ, as we mentioned the Quranic ayah, لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. And verily you, O Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you are on the highest pedestal of akhlaq and character. So that now the ummah will look at you in different spheres and facets of fields and will be able to take lesson from you. And your akhlaq, your character is the benchmark of guidance and hidayah for the ummah. When we are living in this dunya, we are living in a relationship. Our relationship with Allah and our relationship with the khalq of Allah, the creation of Allah. There's two relationships. We generally focus on our relationship with Allah. So everyone talks of salah, and everyone talks of fasting, and everyone talks of hajj, and everyone talks of zakah, etc., which is noble and very good, and we cannot default in that aspect. But what we often fall short is our relationship with the khalq of Allah, our relationship with the creation of Allah. And when we say creation of Allah Ta'ala, it's not specifically mankind. Every creation of Allah. Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam was particular for mankind. He was particular for the animal kind and for the jinn kind. We are not allowed to use bones as a means of purification in the toilets or in the bathroom after relieving oneself, because the bone is the food for the jinn. Allah refleshes that bone, and the jinn will partake of the bone after we eat from it. So we're not allowed to use bones as part of our istinja. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was particular about the animals. So when the animals would be overly burdened with weight and heavy lifting, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, "Irkabuha salihah, watrukuha salihah." If you are taking work from these animals, then you ride them as they ought to be ridden. Do not take advantage of the animals because they can't communicate to you. But they would communicate to Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and they would complain to him. So be wary and cautious of their rights, animal rights. Don't overly burden them with weight in loading your goods. Don't overly push them beyond their physical limits and give them their due rights. In every creation of Allah Ta'ala. And most important amongst them is Bani Adam, Insan. The Nabi of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was that individual. He had such knowledge and he was exposed to such events in the future and in the year after, that if any creation or any one of us had to be exposed to such, we would have deleted the smile from our faces forever. لو تعلمون ما أعلم, he said, if you know what I know, لضحكتم قليلا ولبكيتم كثيرا. If you know just a little or fraction of what I know, then you would cry heaps and you would laugh very little. On one occasion it was Salatul Kusuf. The solar eclipse took place. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was in ruku. Whilst he was in ruku, he took a step forward to grab something. And then he came back. After some time, then he took 2 steps backwards. So as retreating from something. Later on, the Sahaba asked him, Ya Rasulullah, what was that? He said that I had seen and Jannah was opened up to me. And I stretched forward to grab a bunch of grapes. And then Jahannam was opened up to me. And out of the fears and out of the severity of Jannah, I took 2 steps back. I retreated slightly. If any one of us was to be exposed to the manadir and the scenes that the Prophet ﷺ was exposed to, we would have deleted our happiness period completely. We would have just been continuously frowning and upset and depressed and sad. Rasulullah ﷺ would pass by the grave. يُعَذَّبَانِ 2 people are being punished. And he said they are not being punished for something major in our consideration, something minor in our consideration. But in Allah it's kabir. So you would be exposed to some of the punishments of the grave. I'm sharing this with you to understand where he's coming from. Having all of that knowledge and information and exposure to the events of the akhirah. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam knows already the events that is due to take place in the Islamic history, which is going to slowly play out. Sayyidina Hudayfa radiallahu anhu said one day after Fajr he started relating and sharing. حَفِظَهُ مَنْ حَفِظَهُ وَنَسِيَهُ مَنْ نَسِيَهُ. Some of us remembered, others forgot. How much could they have memorized just out of one share? He stressed upon the love of his Ahlul Bayt, because Isa was exposed to the events that is going to take place. He said to Sayyidina Fatima radiallahu anha that you will be the first to meet me after my demise. Despite all of that knowledge, despite all of that information, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not allow that to affect his relationship with the creation of Allah. Regardless of which category of creation, regardless of which category of the human being, whether it was his wives indoors, whether it was his Sahaba of the similar age, whether it was the young Sahaba, the boys and the girls, whether it was the slaves of Medina al-Munawwara, be they male or female, whether it was the elderly women folk, those who had marital and domestic affairs and issues, whether it was his adversaries and enemies, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam displayed the highest level of character. وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. And this is the lesson for us, that how can we imbibe and bring into our lives some of that character, some of that akhlaaq in our dealing with mankind. Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam said that the person amongst you who has the most complete form of iman, أكمل المؤمنين إيمانا أحسنهم خلقا, the one who has the most beautiful and perfect character. And then he said, character starts at home. خياركم خياركم لأهله. It begins indoors and domestically. How many countless number of cases are at our doorstep in which brothers who are considered to be outwardly and outdoors on a certain level of piety and religious adherence, but indoors it's a different story and different situation. There were 11 women in Jahiliyyah. They get together and they were talking of their husbands. Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu anha is the narrator of the hadith. Such a beautiful riwayah. One of them said, زوجي إن دخل فهد وإن خرج أسد ولا يسأل عما عهد. My husband is such, when he enters the house, he's like a cheetah. He's quiet, he's soft, he hides away. Humble, simple. When he's outside of the house, he's the lion. And he doesn't get too involved in the house to domestic issues. He's not like, he's not like micromanaging domestic affairs. He's not like interfering. Like I've given you the responsibility, I carry on with it. Do what you have to do. You are the in charge of domestic affairs, the wife. We are on the flip side. In dakhalna fahidna wa in dakhalna asidna wa in kharajna fahidna. When we get inside, we want to be the lion of the house. That's not your domain. Let it be somebody else's domain. May our souls be sacrificed on for the Nabi. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would be taken by his hand by the slave girls of Medina, and they would walk him around the streets of Medina. They would walk him around the streets of Medina. Whom? Not the Sahaba like Abu Bakr and Umar. Let's go, Ya Rasulullah, for a bit of a stroll. No. The slave girls, young girls. And they would take him by his hand. You know a child? What does the child want from you? They want your bank card. They don't even know what it means. They just want your attention. They made a small Lego set or a small block set. Come and see, I made this tower. Come and see, I did this drawing and painting. They'll make a small paper and painting. They love you so much. And to you, it's like, okay, you wasted paper. To them, this means a lot. So they would take him around and they would walk him the streets of Medina. And they felt content. And he sallallahu went like a humble servant, walked around with them, streets of Medina. The women folk would come with domestic affairs and problems. And they would pour out, they argue, and they would tell him, yeah, my husband did this and he did that. Sometimes they were very vivid in their explanations also. Rasulullah gave an attentive ear. Some of the women, some of the azwaj mutaharat and the wives of Rasulullah, they would be amazed and perplexed. How does auntie is talking like this in front of the Nabi? Rasulullah gave the attentive ear. One day a woman came, she was a little mentally disturbed. She said, I need to speak to you, but alone. No problem, let's go. So he went out, it was a common space, but nobody close by to him. And she poured out whatever she had to pour out. And she said to him whatever she had to say to him. And he gave her his time. The women folk Ansar came to Rasulullah, the women folk of the Ansar, Ya Rasulullah, these men folk, they're taking all your time. You're not giving us any time. No problem. Let's set a time and a date. He went and he spent time with them. And they would ask him questions. And they would ask him masail. And he would give them nasiha and wa'ab. And they would be free. When Umar radiallahu anhu would come inside, they would immediately straighten, straighten themselves, make sure their hijab is all proper and prim. And he would say, what's wrong with you? You're sitting in front of the Prophet ﷺ, and look how and when I come in, like you're all straightening up. He said, yeah, because you're hard on your tongue and you're hard in your hearts. The Nabi of Allah is a soft man. Everyone. One youngster, his nickname was Umair, Abu Umair, his nickname. Rasulullah met with him. He was busy playing with the pigeons and the birds. Ya Aba Umair, ma fa'al al-nughayr. Brought happiness to every person, every category. Anas radiallahu anhu said, I made khidmat of the Prophet ﷺ for 10 years in Medina. And he started when he was 10 years old. He said, never one day did he tell me, why you did this, why you didn't do that. What the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, the Sahaba were not like robotic in front of the Prophet. I can't say this, I can't do that, I must be straight. They would go on a journey, they were going on their expeditions. Some Sahaba are like in front, some on the right, some on the left, some behind. They're doing their things. As long as they're not falling out of the parameters of Islam, and each one is free. They're not feeling like uneasy, they got to like fake some respect in front of the Prophet. How he was able to control himself and destroy his own emotions and put the next human being forward first. The problem we have today with ourselves is, before that, Nabi ﷺ said, beautiful hadith, لا خير في من لا يألف ولا يؤلف. There is no goodness in that man, there is no goodness in that human being who cannot find in himself to love others and others can love him. If somebody can't love you, then there's a problem with you, brother. Because maybe your tongue is too vile. Or maybe your heart is too hard that you become repulsive to people. People don't want to know you. They're just nice to you because they're scared you might say something. Or they're just out in front of you. It's called mudarat. It happened in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. One day one brother came in. He was a bad person. He said, Bi'sa ibn al-ashira or akhul ashira. But then when he came in front of the Prophet ﷺ, Nabi ﷺ laughed, sounding, how are you brother, everything's okay, nice, mashallah. The Sahaba said, Ya Rasulullah, you said of him like that, but they said because he wanted to highlight to them this man had bad character, but he didn't show it to him on his face. So sometimes, if you are unable to love somebody and you are unable to be loved, la khayra fik. There's no goodness in you. The problem with us today is we expect the next human being to come onto our level. If that was the case, Rasulullah wouldn't last one day. He said, أَنزِلُ النَّاسَ مَنَازِلَهُم. You reduce yourself to the level of the person you are dealing with. So when he dealt with the children, he was with them like that. When he dealt with the Sahaba, he dealt with them like that. When he dealt with the women, he dealt with them according to their level. When he dealt with the Arab, the Bedouins, who had no akhlaq and they were uncivilized. He was walking with Anas radiallahu anhu and some Sahaba. He had a Yemeni cloth over himself, which was very coarse in the material. And this Bedouin came and yanked him so badly that it left scars on his body. Nabi Sallallahu just turned around. And then he doesn't even greet, like there's no niceties. He says, give me what Allah gave you. Like you came as a beggar. Rasulullah smiled at him and told Anas, give the brother something. Reduce yourself, deal with the person as per his or her and their level. Don't have the expectation that others must deal with you on your level. I am so and so. This is my position. This is my name. This is my, this is who I am. I am the CEO, or I'm the man of the house, or I'm the father, or I'm this, or I'm that. That will be the beginning of our downfall. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the tawfiq and ability of understanding and coming close onto the sunnah and purifying and perfecting our akhlaq so that we may reach the highest levels of iman. أكمل المؤمنين إيمانا أحسنهم خلقا. أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام صدق الله العظيم سبحان الله بحمده.